Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Warmly welcome to all of you to our webinar regarding development of PV projects, selected legal and tax aspects. As I see, there is still a number of people that are connecting at the moment, but yeah, we have pretty tight schedule, pretty tight agenda, so let's move on. Just short organizational information. This webinar will be as well recorded, so we have the possibility to review or rehear it later on. So let's start, and please let me introduce our participant. First, Jagna Bronk, attorney at law, here in our Gdańsk office, responsible for legal aspects of development of renewable sources, pretty deep knowledge in spatial plans and also civil aspects of securing of land, so easement, lease agreement, and so on. Then, yes. Yes, Magda Kurowska. Magda is responsible for public aid, and subsidies, and we are working with Magda, and Magda is from our Warsaw office, pretty close on renewables. But I have to admit that we are really waiting for the money to come, and that the conflict between Polish government and the European Union will be somehow solved, and the money will to the green transition will pour into Poland. Yes, then Jakub Plebański. Jakub Plebański, deep in energy law, actual PhD candidate, and will be giving us some aspect of development of PV in Poland, or actually, and as well energy policy here in Poland. And last,
hello everyone.
Least, Jakub Weiss, attorney at law, tax advisor, who is responsible here in Gdańsk for tax department, and responsible and actually mostly in tax energy topics, if I may say so. And he will give us some advice on the tax level and some tax issues will be presented from his side. Yes, and as from my side, my name is Piotr Mrowiec. I am head of Gdańsk office, and which is more important here for this webinar, for energy department here by Rödl Partner, sorry, and together, and as well many other people, we are working mostly in renewables. So this is actually our day-to-day business, and that's why we decided a couple of time ago to prepare some kind of guidebook regarding PV. Actually, we should do it so 1 or 2 years ago, but there has been we had no time. But actually, on November, I made some public announcement that we will do it, and to some of our clients, and that's why we grabbed ourselves together, and here we are with the brochure, which will with this guidebook, which I present pretty shortly in a moment. But let's have a look on the agenda of this webinar. So you will see what your how we will spend this 2 hours, 2 next hours. So firstly, you will get the overview of this guidebook, what you can find there. Is it for you? Is it worth reading? Then Jakub will jump to the slot regarding anticipated changes to Poland's energy policy. We will see how the market will probably evolve in the next years. Then Jagna will take the lead and give you some information regarding the development of PV project, stages, problems, duration, cost, and so on. This would be not let's say ex cathedra like lecture, so we will give you some really practice information based on our experience by support for our clients and as they developed their PV projects. Then pretty important issue, I would say, grid connection. We will talk about this bottleneck of PV development in Poland, not only in Poland actually, but in whole world. But in Poland, it is really crucial or critical problem at the moment to get connection capacity to the PV project and to other as well. And then next, we will take a short look to Polish auction system and ask actually ourselves and try to give you also an answer to this question: is it still worth of participating? Actually, if you are interested in the auction system, we together with Jakub Plebański, Jakub Weiss, and with Baringa, we made a couple of months ago some webinar regarding auction system. So you can also find this webinar on our internet site. Yes. Then Jakub Plebański will talk about the business models for PV in Poland, so PPAs, leasing of PV rooftop plants, or even ground-mounted. And then we will jump to the public aid subsidiaries and other form of funds, and this will be Magda talking about, and then Jakub Weiss will talk about tax aspects. Pretty important stuff, I would say. And we will have also the opportunity, or actually you will have the opportunity to ask some questions. We will try to answer them at the end. So that's why we would like to stick on the agenda and move on to make it happen, the whole webinar within these next 2 hours. So firstly, just briefly, our competences, what we are doing as Rödl Partner here in renewables. Through the years, we are dealing with a lot. We have dealt and dealing at the moment with renewable energy projects, and now as actually, if everyone from the renewable sector is doing a lot of PV, that's why also this webinar. But PV on the side of development or support for the development, all of the tax problems with it. So this would be this is actually crucial for our clients support in this by checking of the financial models and as well whole area of legal advice regarding to support in this auction scheme, how to jump off of the auction for in many cases, as well representation before energy regulator office, so and so on, as well as the normal due diligence of the PV project and actually the whole area of support. And as Magda is with us, this will be definitely a very important issue in the next years. So a public aid for a so-called green transition. Yeah, so this is our advice. Here you can find some let's say projects or clients what we have done in the recent years. And let's have a close look on our brochure. Will try. Let me. I will try to open it. You will get the link as well. You will get the presentation actually on PV form as well. So pretty comprehensive information wrapped up in 30 pages. As I see, we decided to make it, as I said at the beginning, to give you, let's say, some closer look on some issues and problems, and give you as well our opinion on some questions. Yeah, but now I see that you haven't seen that actually the brochure. Okay, let's go to the presentation of the Polish PV market and why it's so hot actually to invest in PV at the moment. Why so many are doing it? Firstly, it's here, as you can see, the price of energy is real high. So that's why it's not so only climate friendly idea to make energy from renewables. It's now, and as for 4 or 5 years, we reached even in Poland grid parity, and Poland is not so known for a lot of sunny days. We have half of the sunny days in Poland, like in Spain or Italy, but still we have reached the grid parity due to the few factors. Coal is really expensive, and due to the war, it will be in the future as well. CO2 certificates have been going up steady 2 years, and this is the factor, and that's why it's pretty, and that's why it makes sense to invest in renewables, to develop them. Why PV? PV is pretty easy actually to develop in comparison to a biogas or wind. Jagna will touch this issue. It's the procedures are not so long, I would say, so definitely not so long as for wind. And that's why a lot of developers are dealing with the idea to develop the projects. Okay, there are some obstacles, but I will talk about it later on. And if is there any will it change or will be a drop in investments in renewables? Actually, from the one side, definitely not, because we are still depending on coal and black coal and brown coal. So that's why, and this will definitely needs to change due to the green transition of European Union and due to the information from Polish government. Jakub will go deeper in this area, but definitely there will be still a massive, let's say, development if there will be connection capacity, but I think there will be some changes on this regard. So we will have definitely increased, still and steady increase in the development of PV as well of other renewable energy sources, especially wind. As I heard today, finally there will be some discussion in our Sejm regarding the amendment of the 10H rule. So let's see in the last time in this look into this number, we see that PV is on the steady march. And it's going up. It is impressive. Let's say it is impressive to almost to actually almost 0 to 8 or now 9 gigawatt peak in PV. But please take into account that in comparison to other countries, it's not so much. In Germany, we have 54 gigawatt installed in PV. So even take it into account that this country is bigger, twice bigger than Poland. There is a lot of room in Poland for new investments, and this will be definitely the trend as we see it. Here as well, you can find data about the installation in each year's. Why so successful? Firstly, we had a pretty nice auction scheme and auction model which help to start with the investment. And now, as you can see from the price perspective, it's PV investment, even if there are some problems with the prices and of EPC, there is really a good investment at the moment. So Jakub, I will give you now the voice.
Thank you for Piotr for handing over a presentation to me. In my section, I would like to present for you the most important issues related to Polish and European Union's energy policy. At first sight, this topic can be viewed as a quite theoretical, but in practice, energy policy constitutes a legal framework for further development of regulatory aspects. So in this section, I would like to present for you some trends which can be foreseen and which can we anticipate for the future. First of all, I would like to start with with analyzing the latest data of the Polish Central Statistic Office. It was quite unexpectedly, but in 2020, Poland fulfilled its goal of renewables, reaching 16%, which is very optimistic, and as it's quite commonly viewed and reviewed, it's mainly due to some statistical treatments, mainly because of including wood burning as a kind of biomass using in Polish energy structure. So formally the goal was fulfilled, but in practice it doesn't change the fact that Poland is still in a, let's say, in the European tail of renewable energy users, and the share of renewable energy still is quite low in comparison to countries of Western Europe. What makes a big room what makes a big room for further investments. The goal of 2020 was not the ultimate goal, because Poland needs to face with the further developments in renewables and photovoltaics due to European's directive RED II. Under this directive, Poland is obliged to reach at least 23% of renewable energy for 2030. But in practice, this share is expected to be much higher. It's because of the latest amendments to Polish energy policy, which were amended due to the recent outbreak of war in Ukraine. I mean, the issue of energy independence become really important in Poland, and renewables become one of the most important factors to reach this independence. And as it's reflected on the slides, the old version of Polish energy policy predicted that until 2030, Polish renewable sector will reach about 10 up to 16 gigawatts, and especially photovoltaics will be about to 7.1 gigawatts of installed power. But in fact, this threshold of development of photovoltaics has already been reached, and now the further development of Polish energy policy makes a kind of space for further development, also for further progress of Polish photovoltaics. Right now, we don't have any official statement regarding the new content of the Polish energy policy, but we analyzed some rumors and some announcements of Polish government, which speculates that Polish energy policy will encompass the goal of 50 gigawatts of renewables in 2030. If it's true, we are about to embark one of the most ambitious and spectacular assumptions for the growth of Polish renewables, which in the end should replace using fossils, especially gas imported from Russia. Even if this 50 gigawatts will not come to the reality, the main approaching of Polish government is really optimistic, and they see room for further progress, also for photovoltaics, but not only photovoltaics, also offshore wind energy and onshore wind energy. Polish energy policy, due to the fact of Polish participation in the European Union, need to be harmonized with the European rules. And I would say that European Union's framework is much more favorable for renewables than Polish national energy policy. So the new amendments to the Polish energy policy are kind of, let's say, harmonization and catching up the ambitious goals of European Union. Aforementioned European Directive RED II predicts the share of 32% for entire European community. Within this goal, Poland's declaration is 23%, but as I mentioned before, this goal probably will be expanded. Very optimistic for further development of photovoltaics is a communicate Fit for 55, which see a new level of 40% share of renewable energy sources in the European mix until 2030. What is more, European Union predicts also some activities to gain independence from import of fossils. I mean the communicate Repower EU issued by European Commission, which includes the very ambitious goals of replacing gas by renewables and increasing average deployment rate of renewables and giving some additional capacities to accommodate the high production of renewables and renewable hydrogen. Last but not the least, the initiative European Solar Rooftops, I think it's quite interesting for the photovoltaic sector. This is the new program published by European Union, which includes the goal just to until 2025, all public buildings were covered by photovoltaic installations, all new public buildings, but there are also some programs to make kind of transition of also the older ones. So this is the large space for the development, also micro installations and roof-mounted installations in European Union, but in Poland as well. What is important, and I would put emphasis on, is that both Poland's and energy policy see the same goal, and Polish government changed its primary assumptions and it's decided to harmonize with European requirements just to become independent from fossils. There is no longer view for further development of coal generation and or gas generation plants in Poland. Mainly, the Polish government harmonized with European requirements regarding renewables, and it constitutes quite a good perspective and for the further development of photovoltaics in Poland. What is more, Polish government also sees some alternative business models to support schemes like PPA models and other business models. I will discuss it in the further part. So when it comes to the energy policy from my side, that's it. I will hand over the voice to Jagna Bronk, who will introduce you to the aspects of development of photovoltaics projects.
Hey, hello everyone. I'm presenting now. Hello everyone. As already introduced, I'm attorney at law in our Gdańsk office of Rödl Partner, and in our work we are dealing daily with PV plant projects, conducting due diligence audits, but also supporting PV plant development processes. So I will give you today some information, some basic, but also some very crucial information to the PV development topic. I suppose, I guess maybe many of you, maybe some of you already dealt with the PV plant development, but for those for whom this webinar might be kind of introduction to the topic, I'm presenting the general schedule of the development of a PV farm. It's a model schedule. It might be some exceptions or even many exceptions from that. We don't have time today to go through all of them, but we are describing many of them in our brochure. So I'm inviting you again to read it. Yes, but today we go through the model schedule, and in most cases, or maybe even all of cases, your development would start with the lease. Even if it's your own property, if you're developing on your own property, which may happen, most probably you would establish a dedicated SPV, dedicated company to obtain all of permits. So still you are, you have to think about the lease. And in our practice, we encounter good leases and very bad leases. Especially developers who want to sell their project might say, okay, what's the problem? This template of lease is good enough. We've already realized some projects based on this lease, based on this template. But okay, obviously you could also conclude a contract over a handshake, but it's not only about having a lease, having a right to the land secured, but it's also about having a safe and bankable land lease for about 30 years. And think about bankable land lease, I mean a lease that would be accepted by the bank in the loan process. So from our experience, from our perspective, there are really three crucial things you have to remember, you have to check developing or maybe buying, because I'm addressing this to developers, but also for those institutions, to those persons who are thinking about investing in developed or partially developed projects in Poland. So three crucial things from our perspective, from our experience. Disclosure in the land and mortgage register, very important thing, and it happens a lot that the leases are concluded only in a usual written form. In this case, you won't be able to disclose your lease in the land and mortgage register. You have to conclude your lease by the notary public. You don't need a notarial deed, it's not necessary, but at least notarial certificated signatures. Why this is that important? If you are concluding a lease, your owner, the owner of the property, may during this whole period, few years later, sell his property to the third party. And in this case, if you do not disclose your lease in the land register, the third party, the new owner, is entitled to break the lease. So actually, for this very rational reason, no bank in Poland shall give you financing for your PV project, for the realization of your PV project, if you do not disclose your lease in the land register. Another thing, termination risks. It happened very often. Nowadays, most of leases provides the termination grant for the owner. And the most common example is that the owner can terminate the contract if you won't start your construction work within 3-5 years. And now I'm addressing it mainly to those who are investing in the projects. It might happen that at the day of your transaction, this term has already expired. Like, the owner can break the lease anytime. He's entitled to terminate the lease anytime, and you are buying kind of ticking bomb. So it's also a very important thing to check the termination grounds. And last but not least, security assignment of the contractual rights. Most probably the bank lawyers will ask you to assign the contract's rights from your lease to make a security assignment to secure the repayment of the loan. So it's the best thing to do to ensure at the very beginning of the development process that you're entitled to do so. That's, as I said, 3 things that we know from our experience as very crucial, especially in the loan processes. Another thing that we would like to discuss a little bit today is average rental price for a lease. It's a rent for a lease, because I'm not overwhelming. We've seen over hundreds of leases from last decade. So we've been able to make for you kind of average rental price overview. And as you see, last decade from 2012 till 2020, 2019, 8, 9, 10,000 zloty per year per hectare was a good price. Was a good price for the farmer, for the owners. But as the development of PVs became very popular in last years, and as I said, we also supporting many of development processes, we know very well that it's not a good price anymore. Last year, 14,000 zloty was still a good rent, and in this year, the developers are bidding and offering 18, 19, 20, or even more, even over 20,000 zloty per hectare for a year. If it's still profitable, or it's kind of all-you-can-eat development, I'm not the right person to answer this. It's a part of the financial assessment, but it's definitely facts that you have to deal with if you are starting your development right now. And another fact you shall deal with the lease subject is the valorization, because it's have to be provided by the contract, but I don't think I've seen any contract without a valorization clause in our work, because the owners, the farmers, the other property owners are very aware of this issue, and they always want to have a valorization clause in their contracts. So the rent get valorized mostly based on inflation rate, inflation index. And just to, you see at the presentation the inflation indexes from last few years and the forecast for the next 3 years. So now, just assuming you concluded the lease in 2019, already your rent for the lease would be about 2,000 zloty. And in 3 years it shall be even over 12,000 zloty yearly per hectare. So if you're offering right now 20,000 zloty per hectare, you can easily count how much it's going to be in a few years. So that's, as I said, in our opinion, the crucial and the most practical issues about the lease. We won't go every provision because it would take several hours, but we definitely described more in our brochure. But now, assuming that we are a happy party of the lease agreement, that we already secured our land, we can start with the investments and the building process in the narrow sense. and by investments and building process in the narrow sense, I mean environmental permit, zoning, and the building permit, the building stage. And the general remark for this investment process in so-called narrow sense is one, it's very important thing to be aware of developing the projects or investing at the very early stage. For example, in the only project with the lease. The investment process in this term is governed by the local governmental units. They are the authority responsible for issuing the permits. And what does it mean in the practice? It means that the same regulation can be interpreted and applied very differently in some regions of Poland or even the same region. But in other governmental, local government units. And that's why you actually can never be sure if your investment, if your development is going to be successful. And I will say more about it when we talk about the zoning. But okay, in most cases, you would start after having a lease with the environmental permit, applying for environmental permit. It's because already transforming an area larger than 1 hectare and in nature protected areas larger than half hectare requires environmental permit. Environmental permit, just to put it in simple terms, defining project implementation conditions in order to secure impact of the investment on the environment. Most common example, I mean by the larger projects, by the bigger projects, it's that you are not entitled, you cannot start your constructions works during the bird breeding season, for example. But today I'm not going to go too deep into the environmental permit, and this is for 2 reasons. One, there has been any significant or even any changes in the legislation of the environmental issue in context of the PV plant in last years, so it's not a controversial topic. And the other grant is that maybe not for sure, but most probably you will get your environmental permit, and this is because the grants of refusal to issue an environmental permit, the catalog is quite narrow. It's only few grants that the municipality, that the responsible authority can refuse for you to give you the environmental permit, like incompatibility with the spatial local plan, but in this case you would anyway do not get the building permit. And the significant negative impact of the nature protected area, okay, maybe not developing big projects in the nature protection areas, but in most investigation, it's not the question if you get the environmental permit, but it's the question when you get it. If the office will require the assessment of environmental impact, which would extend the whole process for half a year or even a year. But as I said already, in most cases, at the end, you would get your environmental permit. One thing maybe worth mentioning in context of PV plant development is salami slicing. I suppose maybe some of you already heard this term, maybe still not knowing what is it about. Trying to put it in simple terms. Salami slicing is, in context of our development, is the first division of a big project, which normally would require an environmental impact assessment. As I said, it's extend the whole process for several of months or even longer. It's a division into several small projects, and we've seen a lot of it during our especially due diligence audits, like 2, 4, 7, even 12 or 13 1-megawatt projects on one plot on one property. It's worth mentioning because the consequences. In most cases, there will be no consequence. We have our final permits, we realized our PV project. In most cases, nothing will happen, but still, in worst case scenario, the consequence could be the revoking of the final environmental permit and also revoking of the following permits, like zoning permit and building permit. So it's always good to assess this particular risk about salami slicing, so-called salami slicing tactic by the developers. Okay, but what is and now really for those who are developing or who are investing at the very early stage of the project development, buying maybe partially developed projects, it's a very crucial thing and very controversial thing, the zoning of for the PV plant. To understand this controversial, I will maybe firstly say something about the basic rules of the zoning in Poland, of the spatial development in Poland. The rule is that basically the investment can be located if the spatial plan dedicated for this area allows to locate this kind of investment on this plot. Only when there is no spatial plan given for this particular area, the investor, and I mean it now, all kind of development, all kind of investments shall obtain the zoning permit. Other translation is also development conditions decision or land and use decision, but I will stick to this zoning permit. That's the legislative rule, but in the fact, the most areas in Poland are not covered by the spatial plan. So actually, in the model development, it's exactly other way around. In the model development, you would rather obtain the zoning permit. So this is actually for us the most important part. And now, again, to understand the problem, the general rule about the zoning permit is that some conditions must be met. So the authority, in this case municipality, can issue that permit. Access to the public road. In most cases, no problem. There are still some, actually surprisingly many, but some plots without access to the public road legally, but it's a minor situation. Sufficient supply of media for our investment, no problem. And then the right neighborhood, or other said so-called good neighborhood. It's about that in the neighborhood of your planned investment, PV plant or any other, it must be kind of existing facilities. For us, for PV plant purposes, it would be the producing facilities that allows to the authority to issue the permit. Basically, you cannot build something in the middle of the field. It's not how it's working in a zoning, and that's exactly the problem for the PV plant part, because from the very beginning of the PV plant development, it was this great dispute. Is the PV plant the technical infrastructure which is exempt from this condition, or is it a producing unit and it have to meet this condition so you can realize your investment? And since many of the projects are developed in the middle of the field, it was a very important issue from the beginning. And it was very different practices in many regions of Poland. For example, in North Poland, you could have obtained in these circumstances and zoning permit. In other, it would be refused to you. And also the decision of the court were very differently. As I said, one regulation, many different interpretation. So the legislature decided to unificate the legal situation, and in the mid of 2020, it's now important for the developers who are developing right now currently. They unified the right, and they gave new exemption from this right neighborhood principle. All renewable energy sources should be exempted. So basically, the legislature said you can build in the middle of the field. We have no problem with that. Build your renewable energy source unit, build your PV plant, wherever you want. They wanted also to revive the branch, the PV plant development, to meet all our goals in the participation of the green energy. And this lasts maybe for half a year, because at the very same year, at the December 2020, the National Supreme Administrative Court expressed its opinion that okay, this exemption applies, of course, but only for 0.1 megawatt installation, so for very small micro installation. And over the last year, many municipalities in Poland started to apply this court opinion and changed, sometimes over a night, over 180 degrees, their practices, and stopped issuing the zoning permits as long as the right neighborhood, the good neighborhood permission condition is not met. So the regulation changed, the mess remains the same, and it's very important to know. I mean, if you want to invest, to buy your lease agreement for not that little money, to go through what is the current practice of this municipality, and if there is if it would be necessary, the right neighborhood condition is met. I don't think the legislator will do anything about this problem again, and this is for one reason. There are coming other changes, other amendments to the Spatial Legal Act, and actually in the future, PV plant, exactly with the as the wind farms, shall be located only based on the spatial local plan. So the area of development based of the zoning permit is kind of ending. The changes are not proceed yet, as I checked a few days ago by the Polish Parliament, but still the government says that actually the changes should be enforced till the end of the year. So yeah, this will definitely change the picture of the development in the future. And now the other next step, building permit. Building permit, if we have our zoning permit based development, we do not have to worry about the building permit, because the building authorities are bound by the zoning permit. The zoning permit is binding for them, and it's not probably that we get the refusal. Quite different situation is with the local spatial plan, because the local spatial plan have to provide very precisely that at this area the renewable energy sources may be built. And if we have this provision for our area in the local spatial plan, we will get our building permit. But there are so many, as we already seen in practice, so many different provisions in the spatial local plans, that if you are trying to develop based on this local spatial plan, and this plan is not providing that PV plant might be built on your plot, it's always good to get an advice if it's even worth trying, because there are so many disputes about the local spatial local plan and the green energy. As I said, we don't have time to go through every case, but we described again some of them in our brochure. What I definitely would like you to know about the building permit stage, and I think it's not that common knowledge even for developers. Exclusion from the agricultural use of the land. In most cases, it won't be any problem. Most cases is that you're developing or land class 4, 5, or 6, because for 1, 2, or 3, you wouldn't get zoning permit or building permit in most of cases. It's not some exception, yes, some exception in legislative acts they are, but over 90% I would say you wouldn't get any permits for this kind of land. So yeah, basically you developed on the land classes 4, 5, or 6, and they are mostly formed from soils of mineral origin, and it's no problem. You don't even need to have a formal exclusion from the agricultural use. You just get your building permit, but it might happen even if you are not knowing it, if you didn't check it, that you are developing or you're buying developed project on the land from the organic soil. And as you see, it's quite high fee. It's hundreds of zloty fee for exclusion this kind of land from the agricultural use. So it's definitely the thing worth to know and worth to check developing and buying projects. And last but not least, in my part today, is the securing the legal title to the land on your cable route, on your cable between your PV plant and PV between the point your connection to the grid. Why I'm telling it at the end of my part of my slot? For 2 reasons. One is that you basically can do it on every stage of the development as long as you handled it before you start your construction work. And another thing, because from our experience in our practice, many of developers, and I'm right now addressing it to those who are interested in purchasing the projects, do not consider it as the part of development. It's in many times this kind of situation that the developer is selling the project for a quite high price, but saying, okay, I do not think it's the part of my job. Please handle it yourself. And it's still a part. We put a big pressure on it during our due diligence audits. That still can break your development, even if you have grid connections, even if you already developed, in your opinion, ready to build project. It still can be an issue that you are not able, or on a very high price, you're able on a very high price, because some property owners are aware of how precious that this is for the investors, so they demand very high price for allowing to locate the cable route. From the legal point of view, what is important to know? Transmission easement is actually the one and only legal institution that is dedicated for the cable route. There we've seen many kinds of documents, but it's actually should be transmission easement, and also bank in the loan process would demand from you the transmission easement if it's a private property. If it's a public road, there are dedicated permits in dedicated processes, and it's quite clear situation. The situation is not that clear anymore when we have a private road of the municipality. It's also in every region some other practices, but this is the thing you have to check always in this particular case. And speaking about cable route, about our connection cable, we are smoothly coming to the other part of our today's presentation, connection grid. And at this very point, I'm giving the word back to the Piotr. Thank you for your attention about this.
Thank you, Jagna, very much for this deep insight into development. I would say it was crucial to make it in pretty less much detail, because actually when we are conducting our due diligence, that are the most red flags are in this part, so development and securing of the land rights. Yeah, so that's why it's so crucial to know. Perhaps from my side, to let's say additional information to these two slots from Jakub and Jagna. As Jakub mentioned earlier, there is and there will be a big push to further development of renewable sources in Poland, especially photovoltaic. But on the other hand, what the government is doing, what Jagna said, that actually there will be some crucial restrictions to location of the PV plants. So I think that the new law amendment regarding the placement of PV farm only of zoning plan and not on the zoning decision would be some kind of 10H regulation for a PV sector. This is what I'm thinking. Let's see what will happen. And this is one issue. Hopefully there will be some, let's say, decision-making process and some overthinking in Parliament regarding this proposal. So this is one issue. And second issue, as you have seen the lease payments, yeah, that if you compare it, at the Intersolar, I spoke about it with my colleague from Spain, where the productivity from 1 MV of installed PV installation is like 2,500 megawatt hour, yeah, in comparison to 150 in Poland. And here we have like 4,000-5,000 euro for 1 hectare, and there is 2 till 2.5 thousand euro for a hectare. So actually, more or less the half. Yeah. So this is really pretty overheated market from my perspective. When you see overheated market from this lease perspective and lease payments, I think this needs to be somehow stabilized. I hope the market will itself stabilized in this matter. Okay, let's move on then to the grid connection issues, and I will try to make it really quick because I think most, when not all of you, know how the issue is look like with the connection to the grid, and will concentrate myself only on two, in my opinion, crucial topics in this matter. So really, just to if no one, if someone is not knowing what is the situation regarding the connection to the grid, it's just one word. It's hard. Yeah, from year to year, it's harder to get free connection capacity. There is in Poland obligation to disclose the information about the free connection capacities in the regions. In the each subs, let's say substations or from each operator, you can find it. We have also the links there, hyperlinks to this information. But the fact is, we have discussed it a lot of times together, that this information is actually not much of help, because they do not give real information about the situation they are in this area. Yeah, some of our clients said that they are, let's say, someone put some numbers there and you cannot stick to it. So this is pretty poor observation, but it's the fact. But still, I would say it makes sense to have a look and see more or less how the situation looks like, even it's not so let's say informative or precise. Okay, the how to apply, you will have it in the brochure and here in this slide as well. Let's say the stages. The pretty good idea introduced really like 10 years ago, I would say, this advance payment for the grid connection conditions, that this really helped to prevent the situation that someone without any capital could reserve, let's say, 1 gigawatt of connection power without any payment, and then he sold this to some serious developers. So through the introduction of the advance payment, it has stopped. Perhaps one informative information on this side. We have some of our clients said that they seen this situation that someone with securing a land, for example, for 1 hectare or 2 hectares and so on, still make the application for like 20 or 30 megawatts of connection power. Yeah, and actually, obviously, you cannot put this amount of modules on this 1 or 2 hectare. But the idea behind it was like, I will do it to secure as much as possible, and then do, let's say, this environmental decision and so on. So actually, they did it like with the minimal land securement, just to avoid the environmental permits and so on, just to get, and this is possible if you are planning investment on the area, this is less than 1 hectare, but then they said, actually, I would like to have 20 or 30 megawatts of connection power. But then now the approach from the operator is that you cannot later on, even if you will get this 20 or 30 megawatt of connection capacity, you cannot expand later on the area when you will build your PV farm. So this is crucial, and actually it's not then this make this idea of securing more than you need, or is then it make really no sense. So this is also a pretty nice practice from the operator that they condemned. So this ideas of over securing, let's say, the capacity. So one issue on this behalf, as everyone knows, or most of you know, there are significant problems with the free connection capacity. And in some areas, like as for Enea, from Jagna, actually from September, in some regions, no one got any free connection conditions, actually.
Maybe not no one, but very little,
very few. So this is a crucial problem, and this is as well on the other side, or the problem to connect to the higher voltage because of the reservation from PSE for the offshore wind. So actually, it's really hard to get the connection conditions. There are some ideas how to, let's say, mitigate the problem. I think from my perspective, one is to, as the photovoltaic in Poland does not need, let's say, support in as an auction system. We will talk about it in a few minutes. The money should be put into modernization of the grid, of the net, so of the grid. And this is one idea. The other idea is this cool cable pooling, and this is something that probably could work between wind and solar, as the production curve are really different, and they can really let's say co-use the one grid cable or connection cable. This is something. But one issue, it's from legal perspective, good really to know that if you see that actually you should get the connection conditions because you put the your you put your administrative to the application and you get the refusal, but let's say a couple of weeks later, someone other that put the application later on get some capacity, and you think there is not everything right regarding the right to connect, you can still use the legal institution and make a complaint to the president of the energy regulator office. I think some of our clients asked us to do it. We are preparing in one for one of them one such complaint. We see what will happen. Firstly, it will be crucial to let's say somehow get and squeeze out from the grid operators to disclose some more information, and not only strict answer there are no connection connection capacities, because this is the most frequent answer, really strict without any explanation. And what we would like to know is why why there are no connection capacities, what had happened, have someone perhaps get the connection capacities even if he was later on the queue or so. So this is the idea behind it, just to make sure that the grid operators are not handling without any, let's say, control. We will see what happened. We know that that someone is now also fighting on this next stage, making an appeal to the district court in Warsaw. So there will be, in my opinion, more and more cases to come. Let's see. So this is something that you are developing. Let's please have it in mind that this is some kind of possibility to complain against it. Okay, so grid connection, a really crucial issue. Let's come to the other interesting idea of Polish green transition, which is auction modeling, auction system actually, bidding system, and the crucial question, as many asked, is this worth bidding? And actually, even for those they won the auction, the question is, could I perhaps go out of the auction system to not pay this positive balance back to the settlement authority? This is interesting. Just key data regarding the auction model. I will do not go into the details. Everything you can as well read about it in our brochure if you're not familiar with it. Just to perhaps one information, but for most of you, it will be also very well known that you are not obliged to sell whole of the energy you are producing on the, let's say, in the auction model. And there are a lot of these hybrid solutions or hybrid approaches that, for example, in the first 5-6 years, you are selling mostly on the market, so full market exposure. But then you are selling in this auction model, so you will get this your strike price, which perhaps I will go some slides earlier, which make sense due to the pretty high inflation rate. The auction price is as well subject of yearly adjustment for the inflation rate, and now it's really something that has to be taken into account. So your price of this 240 PLN is after 3 years, you will get your strike price will be like 300 PLN or even more. So this is one idea to if you really want to take part in the auction, to take it this way. Or the other idea is if you have bought your project with an auction with a pretty poor price, you have also take into consideration perhaps to leave the auction. If your project has not been, you did not start it with the first sale of energy within the deadline, this 24 months from the auction date, or after COVID extension, 36 months after auction end of the auction session. You can if you are not ready with first sale, then you will be thrown away from the auction actually, and only what you are losing is the deposit. So it really, and the deposit is not so high as 60,000 PLN for 1 MV power, installed power. So it really makes sense to think it over, perhaps to wait. Or other idea is what's really now even banks are confronted with, that some of the developers that are in the auction mode are selling under the auction would like to willingly pay the penalty for not, let's say, selling within the auction mode, and they would like to sell on the market, let's say for 600 PLN, and then pay the penalty, which is the half of the strike price. So if your strike price has been 250 PLN, then you have to pay back as a penalty 125 PLN. So it then still makes sense to pay the penalty, because then your income will be the difference between 600 and 125, which you have to pay back as a penalty, because otherwise you will get only 250. So because you will get you have to pay back the whole difference between the market price and your strike price. So it's really now interesting to see in the possibilities. What we are now awaiting is opinion, let's say, statement from the regulation office about it, because one of our clients asked us to approach them. What I can as well disclose, our opinion is that this model of selling, let's say, outside the auction mode and then paying the penalty is fine. But just to have, we would like to know how the regulator URE is seeing it as well. So if you would like to know some more on this aspect, I think in this month in PV magazine is also article of us in regarding this situation. So getting up out of the auction. Okay, so this would be from my side. Yeah, we have grabbed as well some data together, just to your information, how it was been in the auctions in the previous years and now. So for your information, this is something that we talked just about. And yeah, Jakub, now please, the stage is yours about the business models for PV in Poland. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Piotr, for handing over the presentation. Now I want to shortly discuss about potential business models for photovoltaics in Poland. To start with the very beginning, I would like to present for you some basic aspects for this business models. The most obvious one, and let's say the primal one, is making use of support schemes, and within support schemes it's taking advantage of auctions referred by Piotr, or other support schemes predicted for smaller installations, like for prosumers in Poland. The other thing, which is I think very interesting and growing trend on the Polish market, is increasing popularity of power purchase agreements, free market contracts between the producers of energy and final recipients of energy. And the third idea in 2 points presented, like a self-consumption for industry and leasing of PV installation. This is the main idea of making use of PV installation in order to decrease your energy bills. So these are three the most important trends in business models for photovoltaics in Poland. Like it was reflected on Piotr's presentation, and the support schemes within auction system is becoming less viable than previously, mainly because of lowering prices within auction system and increasing prices on support on free market. That's why a lot of producers decide to get out of support scam, or just decide to launch their business activity out of a support scam without any public support regarding the generation of electricity, and making use of these two options mentioned by me before. First of all, I would like to present you some basic aspects regarding the PPAs in Poland. I think that it's really worth mentioning because of this is new trend in Poland, and it's a kind of answer of our market for European Union's Directive RED II, but also to the changing situation on electricity market. PPAs in Poland are still quite rare idea for photovoltaics, but the trend is growing up, and we expect it will be more popular definitely in the future. There are a lot of premises to think so. I think that the most important is that basically the idea of public schemes for photovoltaics is sooner or later but coming to the end, and the regulator expands the support systems right now until 2027. It will be possible to take part in auction, but sooner or later the system will expire, and photovoltaics and other renewables on equal rules will compete with conventional sources out of support schemes, and the idea of power purchase agreements is a kind of reflection of the situation. The positive outlook of PPAs in Poland results also from the legal framework, as is presented on the third point of the slide. The legal framework of Poland allows to conclude bilateral contracts for purchasing electricity from renewable energy out of the Polish Power Exchange. I mean, on really free market conditions, out of this regulatory background, and this is a space, and this is the space for conclusion of PPAs. But when it comes to the deeper analysis of future of Polish regulatory, we see that the public legislator is becoming more and more interested in regulating PPAs, and the latest draft of amendments to the Polish Renewable Act includes some provisions regarding introducing a register of PPAs and some information obligations for energy producers. Nevertheless, it seems that PPAs will grow on popularity in Poland and become more and more viable for Polish energy producers. Okay, this is the very basic diagram showing the basic types of PPAs. As you can see, at the blue color remarked are main types of PPAs, the main division of PPAs between physical PPAs where the electricity is provided to the final consumer in reality, and synthetic PPAs, which are kind of financial model and hedging contract. Physical PPAs are divided on more specific parts like PPAs on site. So the installation located directly at the site of the final consumer. PPAs direct wire, where the installation and the facility of the final consumer are linked by a direct cable, and PPA sleeved with using a distribution system to provide the energy through the grid. When it comes to the legal framework, basically all of these contracts are legally allowed in Poland, but we see a lot of troubles with concluding PPA direct wire type of contracts due to some blurred and not favorable regulations regarding the construction of direct line. Within our clients, I think that PPA sleeved and PPA synthetic, called also virtual PPAs, are enjoying the biggest popularity. Now the alternative for PPAs and support schemes in Poland, basing on the idea to make use of photovoltaic in order to reduce energy expenses and energy bills, especially dedicated for big enterprises, which are really troubled by increasing energy prices. A lot of our clients decide to construct photovoltaic facility on the rooftop or in direct neighborhoods just to provide the energy for their own need, and sell surpluses of energy to the grid. Some of them decide to make it on their own. Some of them decide to conclude some sort of leasing contract, like commit to the photovoltaic by any other entity who is formally instructed to build the photovoltaic system and is formally the owner of the photovoltaic system, but the industry clients make kind of release of this installation, taking benefits of the energy produced within this installation. The advantages are quite obvious. It's mainly the reducing the amount of electricity which must be purchased on the market, which is becoming more and more difficult for energy consumers, less dependence on connection capacities. I mean, in case of generation for own needs of the consumer, is not dependent on the capacity of the local grid because of the injection of energy directly into the internal grid within this industry facility. Some favorable zoning regulation for photovoltaic farms on rooftops. This is the very beneficial framework for energy producers introduced by the Act on Zoning Planning in Poland, like no limits for photovoltaics capacities on the rooftops. Then possibility of reselling surpluses of electricity. It was already mentioned by me. It's fully legal in Poland, and I think it's quite interesting. But as an alternative to selling surpluses of energy, the possibility of making kind of storage of energy inside of your facility and taking part in power markets when you making use of your storage and get benefits of the energy sold from the storage or using for lowering the demand for electricity taken from a market. Okay, now after this brief presenting of most vital business models in Poland in the field of photovoltaics, I will be happy to take over the presentation by Magda.
Hello, I hope I can be heard.
Yes, you are.
Yes, okay. My name is Magdalena Skorowska, and I'm very glad to be here with you today. I will say a few words, not very long because the time is running, on the subject of financing of such projects which we are talking about. So I'm talking about renewable energy projects. And here are a few words on the subject. One of the main divisions is for the state aid in Poland is whether it comes from national funds or European ones. Today I will be mostly speaking about the ones which are already in place, a little bit just about the future ones which are planned. There are regional funds distributed by Wojewódzki Fundusz Ochrony Środowiska i Gospodarki Wodnej, as well as national funds distributed on the national level. So no matter where the project takes place, and they are distributed by the Narodowy Fundusz Ochrony Środowiska i Gospodarki Wodnej. As well as I will say a few words about some other sources of regional aid for certain RES projects. So not all of them, but the ones which are just a smaller part of a bigger investment project. And I will also say a few words mostly about the planned European funds for Poland, which are really big this time, because they are about 80 billion euros for Poland, and for the years 2021-2027, the budget is already in place, but it's not made operative yet, because most of the agreements between the European Union and Poland are not yet signed. Some are even being negotiated. The operational programs are also, some are being still negotiated. So we are talking about the future of, and most likely about the end of this year, when they will be made operative. And I will also say a few words about the modernization fund assigned to Poland, which is also quite large, and it's a fund designated for only 10 European countries, which needs to be modernized. And I will say a few words about the open call already, which is the innovation fund. What is important, the state aid in general must fulfill the need of the incentive effect, and in order to do that, it's enough to place an application for aid before the project begins. That's why it's very important to plan ahead, sometimes even months ahead, before you want to use the funds, before you start the project even, yes. So some programs, some aid programs give us a choice of the type of aid which may apply. In other cases, the type of aid is set. As far as renewable energy sources are concerned, meaning energy production facilities, there are three possible types of aids. One is de minimis aid. Is not connected especially to ecological projects, but to different subjects, and it's up to 200,000 euros within 3 consecutive years. The other type of aid, most common in ecological projects, is horizontal aid, and here are the limits. In Poland, meaning 60% of the qualified investment cost for large enterprises in most regions. In some, the limit is a little bit less, going up to 50% in Dolnośląskie, Wielkopolskie, and a part of the Warsaw region. And if you're a small or a medium enterprise, then you also get an extra bonus. So the intensity of the aid is higher by 10 or 20%. The very important thing is what are the costs and the limits in this type of horizontal aid, because what is financed is only the difference in costs between the higher costs of the more ecological solution, being the RES investment facility, and a standard reference operating on fossil fuels. So only this difference is qualified for funding. Another, I would say, exception is the regional aid, which in general does not finance energy projects, typical energy projects, but in some cases it may finance new investments whose part are RES facilities. And I will speak about this. Okay, so what is in place right now is the EU Innovation Fund, which is designed for all of the European countries. So not only Poland. It's a very competitive call for proposals. So the applications may be placed until the end of August. What does it finance? It concentrates only on very highly innovative ecological solutions, which bring some kind of change to the market. So you have to have in mind that your project should have a state-of-the-art innovation. Also, it has to be developed up to a certain point. And it has to have a very big potential to reduce greenhouse effect emissions. And it's designed for a project from 2.5 million euros to 7.5. And the projects which win can count on a cash grant covering up to 60% of the project qualified costs. Another fund is a fund designated only to 10 countries in the EU, among others Poland, actually who has the biggest budget of 20 billion Polish złotych from this fund, and it's aimed to modernize the energy systems and to improve their efficiency in Poland. And it will be based on returnable and non-returnable measures, being cash grants and loans. It is distributed by the Narodowy Fundusz Ochrony Środowiska i Gospodarki Wodnej, and actually some calls have already began this year, but at the moment we have to wait, and it's advisable to check up and then whether to see if any new calls are set. Okay, so as far as the programs which most companies are waiting for are the operational Poland programs financed through EU funds designed just for Poland. So we are talking about 9 national programs for the whole territory of Poland, and 16 regional funding programs for the certain voivodeships. What is important, mostly in the regional funding programs, only small and middle-sized enterprises will be, as a general rule, there may be exceptions, maybe financed as in the national ones, except for 2, the whole country is covered. So just to show you the 4 most important programs which are designed to finance also ecological projects. So the first one is European Funds for Infrastructure, Climate and Environment. FENIX is the Polish abbreviation, and it will also finance the energy sector, including renewables. It will concentrate on the energy effectiveness and on building energy storage systems. The other fund is the European Funds for the Modern Economy, and it is actually not designed especially for ecological projects, but for R&D projects for companies. But they can be combined with modules, the projects which deal with green ecological solutions. The third program is the European Funds for Eastern Poland, where we speak about 6 regions, including a part of Mrowieckie region and other eastern regions. And it will also finance energy projects, intelligent networks and energy storage systems. And the fourth important program is the European Funds for Just Transformation, and it includes, it is based on financing investment projects and in the energy sector as well. But it will concentrate on the post-mining regions, which are łódzkie, lubelskie, śląskie, małopolskie, dolnośląskie and wielkopolskie. Okay, so what is now in place are loans with preferential interest rates, and they are distributed and offered either on the regional level in certain voivodeships or on national level. Especially attractive are the ones where you can apply after receiving the loan. You can also apply for forgiveness of part of the loan. It means if you received it, it works kind of like a cash grant, because it means you don't have to pay part of the loan. And the thing is that not all regional programs have this, so you would have to check in your voivodeship whether they are available or not. In some cases, in some regions, for example, the forgiveness of the loan may be up to 10% with some extra limit, for example, 200,000 Polish złotych. And sometimes the forgiveness limit may be higher, but under the condition that you used this amount for another ecological project. What is available on the national level at the moment, up until almost the end of the year, unless the budget expires earlier, is Energia Plus program, distributed by the Narodowy Fundusz Ochrony Środowiska i Gospodarki Wodnej, and you can apply for a loan from up to from 500,000 to 300 million złotych for up to 15 years, and you can also apply for forgiveness of part of the loan up to 10% and maximum 1 million Polish złotych. But in some cases the limit can be lower if because it's subject to state aid limitations. Okay, just a few words for the end about the possibility to, in some cases, to finance an investment project whose part is a RES facility. For example, you are building a factory and you want to place on the roof PV installation. The requirement to use this aid for this kind of project is that the production of the energy may not be the main aim of the investment. So most costs should not be connected with energy installations, and the production of the energy from renewables has to be for the aim has to be the production for the company's own purposes. Yeah, only up to 20% may be foreseen for sale. The tools for the national tools for regional aid at the moment in Poland is it income tax exemption within the Polish investment zone. So depending on the region, on the municipality where you want to invest, there are different criteria, value criteria. So it means you have to invest this or this amount, actually from 10 million to 100 million zloty as a minimum to be able to use this. And there's also a governmental grant for most important investments in Poland for the Polish economy. And the grant is granted based on the agreement with the Minister for Economic Affairs. And just the last slide, it shows how high the regional aid intensity is in Poland. So you see the limits are relatively high. In Warsaw, it is 0%. Whole eastern part of Poland is up to 50% of the qualified investment costs, and in the richer regions, the intensity is lower, of course. Okay, thank you very much. That's my part. I will pass on to Kuba.
Yeah, so thank you, Magda, a lot. Hello, everybody. So now the last, but probably not the least part, tax part. I think not the least because we have a constant presence of our attendees. So I think and I hope that all of you are waiting for this filling information. However, I will try to be quite quick because we have a little bit behind the schedule. Getting to the point and being now really serious, preparing your business model for the Poland or for your part of enterprise, which will be concentrated on the PV business, you should consider that in Poland we have the two corporate income tax rates, which are as the basic rate 19%. And the 9% for the smaller taxpayers. First of all, they have to meet two main conditions. There are taxpayers whose revenues, including capital gains, do not exceed 2 million euro per year, and who are small taxpayers according to Polish tax definitions, also whose sales revenues, including VAT, in the preceding tax year did not exceed 2 million euro. Sorry, but I believe that one of our presenters didn't mute himself, so please do it if possible. So yes, so the main aspect the main aspect in this regard is that depending on what scale of your planning installation will be, is it possible to divide in the number of smaller installation and so on? You can decide to conduct your business through the number of smaller SPVs or through the one bigger. For the smaller ones, the 9% fit rate will be probably useful. This is also important because according to the local exemptions and also exemptions on the ground of the European Union law, the passing of the dividends can be in most cases tax exempt. How to forecast your revenues in this regard? So first of all, the important information is, and the basic information is, what will be your PPA income. So what you get on invoice, let's say from the trader on another entity to which you will sell the energy. But also, if you are the entity interested in the support system, you should take into account the income from coverage of negative balance. This is also the taxable income. However, you should be aware that only accruing of positive balance, so the amount which you will be obliged to fund back to the settlement manager, is not your tax deductible cost only by accruing, but only on the moment of factual refund. Another thing which you should take into account counting your further revenues is, for example, other revenues like from the sale of certificate of the origin from electricity. This is how can you expect what rate will be usable for you. So the most common type to conduct energy production enterprise is probably the limited liability company, and I'm focusing on it. So in Polish, spółka z o.o. You should be aware that even on this project development level, when basically no big transactions take place, even the smallest LLC has to comply with tax and accountancy obligations. Especially they have to keep full accounting books, disclose their beneficial owners, open Polish bank account, register for VAT, disclose this bank account, for example, on the so-called whitelist, obtain qualified electronic signatures for the management board, etc. They have also, of course, calculate and pay corporate income tax advances, fulfill safety files. Safety files are the files for the VAT purposes, including the declarative and the evidential part, prepare financial statements, and so on. I think this all obligations for limited liability companies, as for all corporate persons, will only grow. In the nearest time, we can expect new obligations, for example, like electronic orders for delivery in administrative, judicial, and civil proceedings, or, for example, structured e-invoices through the national system of e-invoices. This first one we expect even this year on October, and the second one next year. What is very important for the project company or the company is starting its business is the financing of it. We can present the three basic types of financing the SPV, which are shareholder loan, probably the best known, but also causing some problems. Increase of share capital and additional contribution. If it comes of the shareholder loan, as I mentioned, this is probably best known and can be, in fact, the cheapest one, but at the same time demands consideration of a lot of possible tax issues. First of all, it should be decided is it vatable. So whether this is granted in the course of business activity, if yes, if it's tax exempted, or the entity is deciding to resign from the tax exemption. There is no tax on civil law transaction for shareholder loan, which is a good information probably. But what is very important is TP regulations. So every loan between the shareholder and its entity, it's under this regulation because they are with no doubt the connected entities, affiliated entities. So market standards should be kept. Also, the entity can use of the conditions so-called safe harbor, and they should be aware, for example, of risk of so-called requalification. So deciding by the tax authority under some circumstances that another action the loan should take place. For example, increase of share capital. This is not very common. This is rather difficult from the side of authority, but such a risk also exists. Sorry, but once again, I have the request to all other panelists to mute them. Thank you. Another important regulations are these connected with debt financing, because as for Poland, but also for all European Union, basing of European directive, not all there is a threshold for interest or another financing costs to be treated as tax deductible costs. Also, withholding tax, so paying the interest abroad, is connected with another obligations to withhold tax and pay it to the tax authority unless the conditions for exemption, for example, are met. Since the 2023, we are expecting the so-called hidden dividends, which also put more pressure of market standards conditions between affiliated parties. In shareholder loan, so in loan, in fact, we should also remember that the capital is basically tax neutral, but interest are the costs or the income, but only when are paid or capitalized. Another type, also probably quite well known, is increase of share capital. This is connected every time with the tax on civil law transaction in the rate of 0.5. However, only on this part, which is increasing the share capital, not the part which is dedicated to another capitals, so-called agio. This is also surprisingly under the TP regulations, and the increase in the monetary form, what is important in the monetary form, not for example in the contribution kind, doesn't cause income for the company or the shareholder. What is important in this form of capitalization? It's that it is not returnable, so the shareholder won't get back this money. Another possibility is additional contributions. They are different than shareholder loan because they are not every time returnable, but they can be. So this is also a difference from the increase of share capital, and they are also subject to tax on civil law transaction in the 0.5% in the and the base for this tax is the amount of additional contribution. There is no TP obligations, provided that the additional contributions are not interest bearing and are according to the Code of Commercial Companies, and it sits neutral only if made strictly according to Polish Code of Commercial Companies. So deciding about capitalization of the company by additional contributions, it is always good to order it, for example, to the lawyer to prepare all documents to be sure that they are according to the Polish law, and by this they are tax neutral. So our webinar is dedicated to the PV development, and by this we can think of development by ourselves, but of course also purchasing the projects. Purchasing the projects can be done through the two ways, as the share deal, what is the most common, as Jagna before mentioned, and by the asset deal, so the transfer or the set of rights, contracts, and so on, which together create the PV project. Thinking about this type, we should consider that the share deal is the share deal vatable. So from my experience, it derives that in the SPV as the project SPV, it's not treated as the enterprise or its organized part because it's not like ready to operationally create revenues and so on. Another question here is the seller professionally involved in trading of shares, because yet it can be valuable. But even in this case, even if the seller is professionally involved in trading of shares, there will usually meet the VAT exemptions, and the VAT exemption is here as the rule. There are a few reasons for which this exemption is not applicable, but they are very rare in this case. It can happen when the selling of shares is only illustrating like the sale, for example, of the real estate of the goods. But from my experience, it doesn't mostly happen in the case of PV projects. So for the PV project companies, prime tax will be tax on civil law transaction, which is 1% rate on the market value of the shares. And this is very important, that not only the price agreed between the parties in the sale agreement, but the market price decides. Is the shares purchase price tax deductible cost? The answer is quite simple. No, it isn't unless the shares are sold. So bearing this purchase price won't be, like, let's say, tax consumed, but only in the situation we want to share this, to sell these shares further. On the other hand, assets have another tax consequences. So this is valuable because sale of project is treated mostly as the service, and the VAT rate in Poland is 23%. And for corporate income tax, from the seller perspective, the development costs can be treated as tax deductible costs. And of course, the price of the project will be the income, and from the side of the buyer, the project's price will be, in my opinion, the part of the initial value of further PV farm to be depreciated. So when we decide to buy a project company, we should think about it that this value of the company is in fact created by the projects in it. So purchasing it and checking the tax history of the company or making due diligence, we should think about, first of all, number of projects in the company and what is their status. Is the project ready to build, or the status is on the other level? Then how the project was developed. This is very important. Who and by what sources developed with this project. We want to avoid the problem with, for example, income from free of charge benefits. Avoid the problem of breaking the transfer pricing regulations, because they all can be quite costable for the company, and the authority can decide that this is income from these sources. So we should also check, are there or were there any other projects in the company? What will happen with them if our business decision is to buy only the part of the projects in the company, or what happened with them if we will investigate that there were another projects which were transferred to another entities, if this transfer were based on market standard conditions, or it was free of charge. And the last question is, what was the source of financing project development? don't we have, for example, a problem with the payments done by another affiliated company without any loan agreement or another title to this financing. In this case, we have the real problem of free of charge benefits, because in this case, another entity paid for our product. What I only want to point out right now is that in the future, after entering the operational stage, the entity will have also even more obligations and even more type of tax to deal with. So, for example, real estate tax, which will appear for the constructed PV farm, and which is quite problematic right now because of unclear definitions in Polish law. Depreciation qualification and the optimal model for good depreciation of the farm during the year. Excess duty, which is very special for the sale of energy or self-consuming of energy. And for example, minimum income tax, which is the new subtype of corporate income tax for these entities which generate the tax loss or are very low profitable. So this is all to be considered in the future. Thank you very much. And now we have the Q&A part. We are probably delayed a little bit. However, I really encourage you to ask us questions, and we will try to answer them.
Yes, I see that at the moment there are no questions in our chat box here. So you can contact us here you will get this you will get the brochure, and you will get as well the presentation.
Piotr, probably you should unmute your microphone.
Yeah, sorry, it's still not.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Okay, so, sorry. Yeah, technical problem from my side. Okay, right now it's okay.
Sorry, perhaps are you hearing me at the moment?
Yeah, so now I think we met the technical problems, but I think that just maybe you will go with it, but if not, so thank you everybody for attending our webinar. And on the last page of our presentation, you have contact to all of us, and you are welcome to contact us and ask any questions you need to be answered or to get another information.
Yes, at the end, but yeah, my actually pretty funny situation. My microphone was without the energy at the end. So thank you for this for participation. As we see here, there are no questions at the moment. So if you still will have some something to ask, you will find our contact data in the presentation and as well in our brochure. Yeah, so thank you very much. We tried to squeeze all of the information in this 2 hours. It was not possible, but so sorry for this slight delay, but I think it was still informative for you. And yep, please as well check out on our newsletter. Actually, So each month we give us, let's say, some substantial package of information around renewables. Yeah, and if you are still interested in some other information regarding public aid and so on, we will have additional workshop on this behalf, let's say, some kind of broader in let's say at the beginning of June, Magda and Jakub. I think it was beginning of June when I'm not wrong. And yep, have a nice day here from the sunny Gdańsk. Best to all of you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.